What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the show. Today's show is going to be my all-time favorite because on with us today is Terje Haakenson. He is a legend in the snowboarding world, one of my most looked up to and sought after snowboarders of all time. In my professional snowboarding career, I watched and studied every one of his videos to try to master the tricks. And there's a lot we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about professional athletes. We're going to talk about money in professional sports. We're going to talk about snowboarding specifically and the different issues going on in the sport. We're going to get into a lot of good stuff. But before we get into Terje's story and this whole journey, I want to talk about all of you. I want to talk about your journey to becoming a rebel banker. And that journey always begins with knowledge. And the person that told you that knowledge is power didn't tell you the whole truth. Matter of fact, they lied to you. Knowledge is not power. It's the application of knowledge that actually gets it done. So what I want you to do today is I want you to listen to this. And I want you to find a couple golden nuggets and I want you to take action on them in your life. And I'm going to challenge you. I always like to give stuff away for free, and I know that that motivates you to take action. So how about if I give you something for free? I've always been a car guy, and Terje and me were talking a little bit about vehicles and cars, but I want to teach you how to get all the money back for every single car you will ever buy, drive, and own. And I'm going to do that by giving you my free booklet. The booklet's called Drifting Away from Traditional Car Buying, and it shows you exactly that, how to get all the money back for every car you buy, drive, and own. You can have it for free. Just go to chrisnoggle.com, click on the Wealth webinar and register. There's no cost, and the book will be sent to you. So that's called taking action, folks. And we're going to talk now about a professional athlete that did exactly that, took action every step of the way and did it. Terje, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what I want to do real quick is, you're known as one of the most influential snowboarders of all time, the snowboarder that revolutionized the sport in the 90s. And what I'd like to know is, what are you doing today? So that was the 90s. Then we went through the 2000s. What is life like today? I know you do a lot of surfing, I believe in Hawaii. Just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, I started my career professionally in 1990. And since then, I had some years where I took it a little more easy and learned a little bit more about surfing and other activities or sports. But 31 years later, I'm still snowboarding quite a bit, but I'm riding all these other boards, so it's not stagnating. Snow skate, powder surfs. I still skateboard quite a bit. I play soccer. I surf. Just learn how to foil. So I do my whole life drives and activities. That keeps me happy and keeps the food taste better. And I think that's just an important thing. And I'm not really a training junkie. I get my power from activities, and I build my body up doing yoga, keeping it in check. And that's not for me. And I do action sports, so I don't really need to be incredibly strong. I just need to be, flexible and strong enough to do those activities that I do like. Because, like I said, that beer or that food or that glass of wine will taste so much better if you can keep yourself active. It's a lot of sitting still this last 10 years with the internet and, smartphones. And I can see sometimes myself, I have problems, I play too much chess or, my bathroom Swisses are 20 minutes too long. They're not good. And I'm struggling that too with my kids, trying to, delete a lot of apps, we don't really need and waste time on. I like to live and learn. And other things I do, I cook, I do have a lot of kids. Not all the kids live home because some of them are grown up. But that's my drive. And I like to design products and help out other people doing activities or products.
Fantastic. And one of the things you mentioned in there is, keeping your body and your mind, into the game by doing activities. I think a lot of people think athletes, and some do, but they think athletes just spend all their time in the gym, getting in shape and getting strong. But the gym can't mimic being on the snow. The gym can't mimic being in the water and surfing. I mean, just doing that activity or other activities that are similar to that will get your body programmed and ready to do that longer in your life. And, how old are you now?
Pushing 50, I say.
Okay. So I'm 40. I just turned 44 yesterday. And it's an interesting thing because, in our 20s and 30s, we were invincible, but then you kind of, some of those injuries catch up to you and you start getting a little bit scared to do things because, I don't want to get hurt. But kind of how you're doing it is you're staying in the game, and that's keeping you, more limber and able to keep doing this into, the 50 mark. And that's tremendous. Like, I still skateboard all the time, but when I bail, man, I feel it for 3 days, but I won't stop, because if I stop, it just never, ever gets better. And I think that's an important thing. And what I'd love to do right now is, in any athlete, especially snowboarding, right? We start doing it because we love it. We find it somewhere in our life and we start snowboarding and we do it for free because we just have a love. It's our hobby. It's our passion. But for you and for me and for many of our other, athletes that went on to be professional, there's a point where it turns into, I don't want to say a job, but a career. It turns into our livelihood where we actually start getting paid, and some different things happen. So can we go back in history to when you were doing this just for the love of it? And then what happened that catapulted you into the professional realms where you're actually being paid?
Yeah. So my background before snowboarding too was, I did some alpine skiing. Pretty good. I was on the state team in Telemark. Also in soccer. One is a team sport, coaches and other people to refer to. And then skiing, coaches, training camps. And then what I got into standing sideways was, like the first skateboard movies, Trash In. I think I saw Trash In the first time I saw like really cool skateboarding. And then, a lot of people refer to Back to the Future, but I think Trash came at least 4 years earlier. And, we got a hold of skateboards, and then snow surfers got like around. They were, the amazing how those things got around. But I even remember my school had 5 of them. My neighbor had one. And when I went to do skiing too, we always made jumps, and we did the race and looked through the course and did that. But as soon as the race was over, we're all in the woods finding jumps and stuff to jump off, and like waiting for the prize giving. Like that was every other weekend, different places in Telemark. And that kind of, I remember like being on this training camp, how it was just like, it was cold and we were kind of forced to be out, and it was just like kind of like killed a lot of the pleasure of like being, it was not that fun. I was obviously pretty young, but that thing we found with a lot of people at that time, our parents didn't do action sports. There was no coaches around. There was nothing. It was just something for us, for ourselves. And we'll go down to like a local sports store or a skateboard store, and we see new videos of people doing action sports, and that was like our drive, and like that's how we learn things. And that's how like a lot of my friends got into snowboarding too that time, because there was just no parents around, and it was just our drive, and we decided everything. And but it went, like I think snowboarding caught on quick to be a sport with, like you can make a career out of. And it went really fast, I think, from the late 80s to, the beginning of the 90s. And I was like in the middle of it. And to be honest, my goal when I was in 9th grade, when I was 15, because at that time you in Norway, you only had 9 grades, so then you can do whatever you want. But normally people go to school. And my goal was actually not to go to school. So if I can make money, that didn't mean I had to go to school. So that was like little, like if I had like a drive, I think that would be it. And the closest I got, I asked for some brochures for this one school, but I never applied because last year I went over to the US Open 1990. Well, for that first I did a World Cup in St. Moritz, qualified. Burton invited me over to the US Open, and then 2 weeks later was the World Championships in Breckenridge. And I was still in school, but that was like when I got the contracts offer, and I go like, okay, I'm not going to school. And then in the beginning, you know, like the little stuff Burton or sponsor will ask you to do is pretty simple, you know, so you can still have that pleasure of just you're doing it for the pleasure. And I never really felt it was work. It was just, everything was just learning. You learn about designing products and the circle of when the clothing was coming out, and from we had the prototypes so you can test them to and giving feedbacks, and like, you know, like that was kind of like my school right there, you know, from sponsors that like was just including all the riders who were traveling, and you know, even like our travel gear, because we traveled so much, got really good. And I know a lot of people in action sport had like some of the best travel gear because we travel so much. So I never, like, the only thing I felt like was work, and I think that came later, was, you know, the admin, you know, like there's sometimes you have to do maybe too much emails and whatever, but it was never like, I always felt like I was blessed and privileged. So, and I have a friend that has a lot harder jobs and being a professional athlete. So I never really complained and look at it as bad, and felt like I was forced to do it. And I was in the position too, because I did so well that I can pretty much steer my own thing along as I did what they kind of expected me to do. Like, you know, like they would ask you to go, like, can you go here and there? And you would do that. But like most of the time I was like doing whatever I wanted to do. Even though when I stopped the World Cup, you know, they go like, well, they wanted me to win this overall thing, but they also said it was okay if, I remember when I stopped, and I did 4 contests that year and I won all of them. And there were title contests. There was US Open, Nippon Open, and I think one in Europe. I don't remember. But since, if I probably wouldn't have won that, I probably would have gotten more directed, like you should do this and that. But since I was doing well and I had video parts in a lot of movies every year, so I was kind of free to do whatever I want. So yeah, privilege and lucky, you know. But I could see for other people, that was some of my colleagues that was always maybe picked the wrong path through, focusing too much on the contest when they didn't do the filming. And then when their contest career was over, their whole career was over because they never did all the other aspects of snowboarding.
That's one thing that I always admired about, you know, your career and what you did with snowboarding. You were very, first off, I mean, your first sponsors, you know, you had, from what I recall, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it was Burton was the main sponsor. Then Volcom was, you know, came in and became a big part of what you did in the brand. And then also Oakley. And those three, you know, a lot of athletes go after so many different sponsors that aren't even related to what they're doing. And you were very focused on that. And I'll never forget in the early years watching you in Mount Hood, and you were probably riding prototype Volcom stuff. And it was so cutting edge and so different in its design than anything else I'd ever seen. That was the point. And you were talking about schooling and kind of how your professional, you know, being an athlete and doing that and working with these companies in product development and marketing and all these things was your education. I mean, that sometimes is probably the best education you can get. You watched how these companies, especially like Volcom, you were on Volcom at a pretty early stage of that company's existence. And that company is now massive. And you kind of saw that whole company come up, and you were a large part of it in those years in development and branding. Whether you look at it as marketing or not, you were the brand for quite a while, especially Oakley. When I thought of Oakley, I thought of just you. You know, maybe a couple others, but you were like the focal of that. So how much did that really impact what you did and how you did it? Or did you just go out and do what you did and the company sort of just followed along? Was it the company leading you a little and saying, all right, well, this is the image we're going for? Was it you doing what you did and then the company actually just branding around what your lifestyle was doing?
It was both, you know, and like you said too, you learn from obviously product guys. You have soft goods, hard goods, but you also learn from the camera guys and the filmers, and kind of like also learn the fact that even though having movie parts is not a contest, but it is kind of a contest. You want to try to get the best movie parts, so you're out there kind of like competing, in a way. So some of my sponsors, like they would just do all the developing, like Oakley would do everything, and then it was we did feedback and stuff and testing, but not really so much in the beginning. I think they got better at that later. Burton has always been testing, and Volcom for me was more like just all the life, like the different cyclists of different type of clothing and a totally different way of marketing. They always made the coolest movies. They made a movie for me, and I felt they were like using me more than the other sponsors. Like Volcom was really more like a family in that sense, and they invited me to go on surf trips with the surf team, and it was it was more like a lifestyle with that brand. And then and with Burton, it was just at one time there was too much soft goods, too many things, and too many colors and too much graphics, and I always focus on the function. Mm-hmm. So like I always function on the boots and the bindings and the board. Like I do technical clothing too, but it was more like I always find something to wear, kind of, because you can't be involved in everything. And and that was like my drive too. And it was amazing when you with some other guys or you come up with an idea that really worked well, and a couple of years later or really soon other companies will copy you, and then you feel like you achieved something, and it was like progress. A lot of the stuff didn't work, but always trying, and I did the same thing when I started the Arctic Challenge with progressing in the sport, just trying different formats. We did create a new judging format. We always say like there's not one format that is perfect. It can be different things. One day it's like a head-to-head. One time it's a jam session. One time it's just a golden run thing, and that's competition. But we always try to make. We made the biggest pipe in the beginning, the super pipe. We made the biggest quarter pipe, and we didn't really know if it's going to work, but we tried. We failed on some things, but you have to fail to, get forward. And with everything, I think you just got to like really try.
I love that you said that. You got to fail to move forward sometimes. So you were really pushing the envelope. I mean, Arctic Challenge, when that came out, I mean, even as a rider, I remember looking at that, just saying, how are they going to ride that thing? I mean, the size of that quarter pipe in those days, it was so, watching it on TV, you're just scared just seeing it. And, so you guys are really pioneering a whole new concept there, and you were pushing the envelope. But why did you do Arctic Challenge? I mean, there were so many other contests going on back in that time. Like, what was it that drove you away from the traditional contest and to the point where you're like, I want to do something different. I want to do Arctic Challenge. Was there some driving force that did that? Or was it just something like, hey, this would be fun to do a giant quarter pipe and just see if we can go really high on this thing?
Yeah, well, I like to, my type of riding is to go fast and go high. And a lot of the pipes we did in the 90s was dangerous because they were so small. I would try to ride the fastest I can. And if I timed it wrong, I will deck or I will land flat. And I don't like to do speed checks between the walls. And I always looked at like, skateboarding had these ramps that were normally a lot bigger than the snowboard pipes. And I was like, hey man, we have bindings. You know how much force we have in those bindings? You can do whatever you want when you have bindings. Everything is just so much easier. We have a bigger board. You can go way faster. And I was always thinking, I saw some ramps too, where some of the bigger skaters, they were like, yeah, it's just bigger with a nicer transition. It's you have a more leverage to land. You can land a little low and don't land too hard. And And that's why we started out like Oakley. Actually, the Gus Buckner, the marketing manager at the time, is like, hey, if you would do anything, I'm like, well, let's make a pipe that we can be proud of, because they're showing these pipe contests on TV, and fuck, man, like there's 3 guys who look okay, the rest looks like it's shit and it's bad for the sport, and we can do so much better. We have like I said, we have the bindings, we got boards, we can go a lot bigger and faster. And that was like the start of the Arctic Challenge. We did a pilot year in '99, wide round pipe and hip entrance, and
I remember that.
Yeah, just testing. Like you can do whatever. Like make it snow, so you can make whatever. But and that's the sad thing now, that is everything's just been stagnated. You always hit the same pipe, and I don't think the pipe should be the same everywhere you go. You know, like you see skateboarding bowls and parks, they're always a little different. Waves are always a little different, and you have normally you have different winners too, because some people will love that park or love that wave. But in pipe, for those last years, it would be like Sean or Scott or whoever had that one rundown for that year with a trick list in the pocket. They go like, they knew the result. If I do this trick list, that's the 3rd place. If I change that might be a 2nd. And that's not really progression, or you don't feed off each other when you ride, like you have with a lot of like skateboard jams on different things. And you can watch Archer Longo ride in Japan and in the States, same run, just a different place. And yeah, that gets boring, and that gets the popularity down too.
No, I think that's interesting that you bring that up. And, you know, even myself watching, you know, the sport and coming from the sport, like I get really bored, you know, like if it's the Olympics or if it's X Games, you know, watching the pipe runs. I mean, yeah, Scotty, it's awesome to see that, or any of the other top athletes today, but it's the same thing all the time. And, you know, if you watch Subject Haakonsen or anything back in the day when you were really pushing the envelope, everything was different. Like one shot, you're riding the US Open pipe, which, just so everybody knows in context, if you don't remember the 90s in snowboarding, half pipes were like 12 feet high, dug with giant excavators. And then, you know, the groomers came and they actually had, you know, better pipes. But back in those days, a lot of that was shovel work or a tractor building them. So
yeah,
very different.
Yeah, it took more like you have to actually ride a snowboard.
Yes.
Because there was kinks and there was things.
There was runways. I mean, the first hit was always that highway hit. Yeah, it was totally different.
Yeah, now that you have everything perfect too, you can like people have like that, you know, stances that wouldn't be the best for free riding or riding, but everything is just so perfect. I just need to hold that edge, and it's progression, and I think progression is cool with the airbags and all those like flips and stuff. But it's like, I don't know, like when you, even though like I've seen some interviews with some of the top half of it, they're like, oh, we're spinning so much, it's like it's not really fun. And like some of their best tricks will be maximum of 540, where they can really hang upside down and enjoy, not, you know, what spins the most or gives the most points. And that's, if you had different formats, a lot of those tricks will still be doing. Our last Arctic Challenge, we did this half pipe where we were testing, and there was like the guys who never been to the Arctic Challenge before. And I remember the guy going like, this is the coolest. I don't have a trick list in my pocket. And I think Danny Davis won, and we had a wall ride. We had a mailbox in there. We had an extension, and he did 1 cork, maybe a 2 cork. And I remember like you can lose your speed, but still you can do a technical tricks on a feature. If you lose your speed or fall in this, like the super pipe now, you're out.
You're done.
You're done. Yeah. So it's more like, and then we had this jam, we were just feeding off each other. Like one guy was starting to hit this wall, and then it was just, that's progression. I think is more fun too. And it shows that it can be done. And I think that's keeps it interesting too, because like you said, we get bored of action sport because we see it. Somebody does something new, it takes 5 minutes, and it's on YouTube and everybody sees it. Like going to movie premieres in the 90s, when people were doing new tricks that were coming out once a year, you know, people were just like, yeah.
Everybody had the new trick of that year. And then every other rider's like, I got to master that trick.
But then we just get, we get fed by action sport and the X Games and whatever. And then I remember this welcome premiere we had in the parking lot later, where Björn Linus had this amazing part with these amazing tricks, but people who was so fed, you know, by action sport, they were just like, yeah, okay. And I remember like we had this animation between the writing, some skits and stuff, and animation was kind of new, and people were more stoked about that, you know, because that was new. And that's how like we feed our minds that we get used to it, you know, like, you know, just amazing. Like, it was just a different atmosphere when everything was new and possible. Now it's just, you always think like the PlayStation thing that we thought never was going to be possible is like getting possible. And I think it's amazing. And you know, you also see like, you know, I follow skateboarding more than I do surfing and snowboarding. So I see a lot of styles there, you know, and some of these kids that are basically young, but also that these kids that really have their style and stuff too. They're not just like a contest product in a way.
Yeah, you know, with the progression is such an important thing. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that coming back to this sport. You know, I know Burton's doing some really unique events where, like you said, the hip into the pipe, but then followed by a rhythm section, followed by a, you know, the bowl at the bottom.
Burton doesn't know that. You're thinking about Danny.
Well, yeah, but Danny. So Danny was more part of that than Burton was?
Well, we've been trying to change the use open pipes for so many years. And finally they did a little bit, you know, but. Well, I remember like we hosted the World Championships too, the TTR World Champ in 2012, and I had the hip in thing, and I was out traveling riding powder. I was not doing the contest, but coaches and these guys were calling out, "You can't have the hips. It's not what we've been training on." And you know, our answer like, "Well, you snowboard, right? You got to snowboard to win." Like, you know,
I love it. Oh my gosh. You know, before we went live with this podcast, we were talking offline about like, you know, the pipe riders, you know, not to name any names, but, you know, you'd go to the event and like all the pipe riders were there and that's all they train is pipe. You know, it's the only thing they ride. And, you know, like when you got to a pipe run, you wouldn't hike the pipe, you'd take the lift so you could ride the trees and hit little hips on the way down. And, you know, the pipe riders, it starts snowing and they're like, oh my God, it's snowing. You almost kind of look at them with your head sideways being like, aren't you on a snowboard? Like, isn't that good? But they were just so conditioned to ride like these perfect conditions with their perfect trick list. Yeah. That's not progression.
The groomed parks and the group. Well, it's like not progression, but I think just like a lot of people are missing out on what's all the different essences of snowboarding. You know, like you don't really have to do one certain type of snowboarding the rest of your life. You have all these different type of snow conditions, all these different mountains, and all these things you can ride. So, and I think that will keep it more interesting for people too.
I agree.
I like when I travel certain places in the world, I have to bring 2 board bags because I have so many different toys.
Yeah. I love it.
I like the quiver of like, yeah. So, and that keeps it interesting for me, you know, like, you know, it's not like mandatory for me to have it perfectly groomed and use straps all the time.
Yeah, the snow skates, you're pushing that whole aspect of the sport in a huge way. I think it's amazing to watch that.
Yeah, it's like I just look at the mountains. Most of the mountains are kind of boring on the snowboard in a way because it doesn't like I can have fun and do this airs, but I feel like snow skating is closer to surfing in a way, a little bit like skateboarding, even if you got to use your edge. It's really slippery. So it's not really the same. You can do a lot of the same tricks and you're free with your feet. You can run around. There's a lot of benefits and it makes like a small mountain resort, like it makes it bigger. You use all this muscle and it's more finesse and pushing. I feel like with snowboarding, if I ride like a park one day, I have so much power and like torque. And I didn't even crash the whole day, but I really beat my body up because I have that. I'm strapped in. I can do whatever I want. So I want to do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm. In a way, including landing flat, like that one Insta story you did, man. That you went so far past the landing. I'm surprised your legs held up on that.
What, on the snow skate?
No, it was on a snowboard. It was you were doing Insta stories on a snowboard, and then you also were doing them on a snow skate. Might have been a different day, but you were just taking park runs. And there was one, I think you did a rodeo, and man, you landed so flat.
Yeah. Yeah, flat landings are not good. So
no. Well, let's take this a different place. So back in the 90s and every time when you were doing it, like there was a lot of money starting to flow into the sport. And there was, the contest prize, prize payouts were much higher. And, I know just from the athletes that I knew well, the contracts they got were pretty good, but things are definitely changing now. I mean, yes, there's top paid athletes, but if you just look at the entire sport, how does a professional snowboarder make a living out of this? And then, if something happens, an injury, I mean, as per my contract, I had 6 months to get healed. If I wasn't healed, it was pretty much done. And that was it. Like, I'm done. Then I'm going back to whatever job I'm going to find. Like, how has the sport changed with money wise? I mean, you did very well, and a lot of the other riders you rode with did very well, but how did you do it? And then so many others not able to do it financially?
Well, I wouldn't say I took advantage of getting outside sponsors. I never had. I always had, like you mentioned, product sponsors.
And then prize winning and things like that, right?
Prize winning, and some people, if you win a lot of contests, you obviously get money. Well, today you wouldn't get that money, but back in the 90s, you got a lot of money when it was governed by snowboarders and people who had love for the sport. The highest prize money to today's date is still from 97, 98 maybe. And that was in Austria. It was $100,000 one. And then I always tried to have the highest prize money with Arctic Challenge too. Maybe a little easier in some events because we didn't have like a lot of different disciplines and stuff, but we always had the 50s and the 60s. And then some guys are really good at selling themselves and getting outside sponsors, or if it's a car or a brand that doesn't really have to do anything with snowboarding. But in general, it's the whole action sport definitely took a dip. There was a lot more startup companies in the 90s too. But now it got wider. But you got to definitely be smart. You got to be able to sell yourself, market yourself. Sometimes do stuff like I know a lot of people who are sponsored by stuff they actually don't want to be sponsored by, because it's, you kind of like this have to be a role model when you're an athlete and a public figure. And I know a lot of these guys just have to take the money, even though the product gives you health problems. And I can understand that to a certain point, but I don't understand when they say the same thing, or they hug a tree one day and then they do other stuff for the environment the next day. Like I will say, like there's probably a hypocrite in all of us. I don't stand for anything what China's saying or the politics, but most of my clothing is made in China. What I'm just going to try to change that though. I do fly a lot of airplanes, but I do a lot of ambassadoring for our environmental stuff. I do a lot of like free stuff. Like a lot of people think I get paid and say stuff and post products, but a lot of products I post and stuff, I don't get paid anything. It's just products I like, and I like to share the products with other people because I think it's a good product. Let's see, today, most people are actually saved by an outside sponsor. There's very few doing 6 figures in snowboarding. I think it was more before. Well, there's some, but I also think that snowboarders in the industry can thank themselves, especially, this is just the contest part, for now being more popular and actually having the ability to get sponsored and higher prize money, because it's all scattered all over the place, and I was looking at the FIS, the Ski Federation price list, and I was trying to find the snowboarding prize money is so low that it even posted. So they have the ski woman and the ski men, and it's roughly like some of the best guys last year had like $500,000, and down to fifth, maybe like it flexes down to 300,000 in prize money intake. And to get to 300,000 in snowboarding, I don't think anybody got there last year, even with winning everything almost, so,
so maybe that's
like, now it's like a lot of people also like refer to me as negative when I post stuff about the IOC and thing. I'm like, well, you can thank yourself, I don't think it's fair. I want to protect, the athletes and the sport and the progression. And like looking at the half pipe and slope style, how incredible good these athletes or the riders are now, and the risk of, you know, that we had people who died, we had people who get paralyzed, and it is an action sport. But to grow a sport and the prize money is really low, I don't think a lot of parents want their kids to do that sport. If you're thinking about it in that perspective, it's like, I'm like, oh, that's amazing, but like, oh yeah, $10,000, son, I don't want you to do this. It's not the risk. I'll pay you 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to look at it, because if you're going to progress a sport, like there's got to be something at the end, you know, if your parents or whoever's going to kind of influence you to, oh my God, you got to do this. I mean, every parent, you know, of a professional NBA player, NFL player, like they're pushing their kids because there's like, hey, it's a lot of money in that. But snowboarding, it's like, oh wow, you're going to do this and make 10 grand or 40 grand a year. Like, maybe not.
You know, I don't think snowboarding is the only sport who kind of should do it the other way, whatever. But I think, you know, they'll definitely be stronger if everybody stick together and had one platform and set up some. I remember in the early 90s too, we had a PCA, was Professional Riders Organization, where we had meetings only riders, and we were setting demands. So it's like, hey, your calendar, there's too many contests. Hey, we need the prize money to be a little higher. On like, we were setting the demands to the ISF. And, you know, like some sports do have that. And, you know, there's also the safety for the athletes, you know, action sport, when outdoor sport, when we have wind and bad weather, it's risky, but, you know, the sponsor and they don't care. They just want to like push it through. And what's the results? Well, you look shitty on TV. Some people might get really hurt. And that's like dilutes the sport and waters it down. So, you know, like I'm pretty fed up with the sports politics, but I get asked by this a lot, you know, so then I was like, fuck, I answer it. And I learned more about it too through the years. You know, I probably know more about IOC than IOC members do. But yeah, it's kind of sad to see that, you know, because, you know, action sport, you know, why does all these people want to associate themselves with action sport? Because it's action, it looks cool. And as I remember, if you remember, like in our 90s, whatever, even you see any kind of commercial, it would be surfing, skating, or snowboarding, you know, doesn't matter who it was, whatever, but any like company would use those, you know. They didn't use a cross-country skier or a tennis player or like something, you know.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you just go into like a camera store and what were they showing on the cameras or the TV, you know, that would be action sport. So it's kind of like sad to see that, you know, people are just, they could have been a lot further. People could have had better careers and more money and more safety around them. You know, some of those guys risk so much. Their careers maybe 5 years or 2 years, 4 years.
Yeah, and that's sad. It's you know, it's a lot like a football player. Their careers are really short, but they're paid well. And you know, most professional football players get a pension that's paid out to them after. None of that exists in action sports. I don't even know if it exists in any aspect of action sports. I mean, maybe the Kelly Slaters, but he's still out there crushing it, you know? So like, of course he's still getting paid good. It's definitely something that needs to change, especially now that, you know, skateboarding, surfing, and snowboarding, all the action sports that I grew up with are all Olympic sports, and not just Olympic sports. Correct me if I'm wrong, but snowboarding is like one of the top 3 most watched Olympic sports that there is on the Olympics. But yet those athletes aren't paid what the other athletes are paid.
Exactly, and also they don't get the money that IOC gives to this different federation. I think IOC gives $600 million to the ski federation, and then FIS has to, you know, they give out the money to different countries and like, and it's like they have also monopoly on this thing. You know, you have to be in the federation national team, and it's just like, it's just so many things, because we're factory riders. We never wave flags in action sports. You know, most people don't even live in their country. You know. But when they go to the Olympics, it's like a lot of people highlight, well, I'm doing it for my country. We're like, well, fuck, if you're doing it for your country, you should fucking live in your country and pay your taxes in your country. And that's doing it for your country. Not that you live in some other country, pay taxes in another country. You know, so it's like, yeah, it doesn't really make sense, you know. We never like we're sitting in national suits in groups, you know. And I remember like meeting people from other sports when they have there, and like they were jealous of action sports, and so like they were like, dude, you guys are so cool. You just blend in. You don't have like those what do you call them, suits?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much what they are. The outfits.
Yeah, outfits and the team outfits and representing it's just more free. And then I remember even like my first tax lawyer here in Norway, when he saw my contract, he was doing contracts for World Cup Alpiners too. The first thing he said was like, wow, your contract is just so much more professional, you know, because he was saying that, you know, like including the marketing, the photo shoot, and how much involvement in a company. And he was just like really surprised where the ski guys just had really old school black and white. And you're like, here's your number and we tell you what to do.
Yeah, just controlled.
But you see other sports copy action sports a lot, you know, there might be like laughing at us and don't think we're serious athletes. But I think action sports are some of the best athletes in the world because our diversity and you know, like even if like some people are in their jeans and pretend they're drinking and smoking, you know, they're fucking still one of the best athletes. And a lot of these guys are really serious, especially I like skateboarding. A lot of people think that's like fully rock and roll, like, but I would think they are the most jocks in action sport too. I find the most, not all of them, but like there's a lot of them. And that was like surprising to me because I had this other image in my head about skaters, but I was like, holy shit, you guys are fucking way more serious than I ever will be, or like in a different way. But
I agree. And that's the same thing, you know, just coming up in skateboarding, it was rock and roll, just kind of like just out there. But if you look at the professional skateboarders today, the ones in the Olympics, like they're training nonstop. It's a whole different thing than what our minds want to think about skateboarding. Like you're right. They are the jocks of the action sports for sure.
But you know, and I think it's necessary to have that progress. And some people, like I'm lucky, I have like the natural talent, but I also think I have that talent because I do a lot of different activities and sports. But I have other guys that go like, hey, for them to be good, they just have to train a lot, and we're just built differently. I was just lucky enough that I can do most things just looking at people, whatever, but other people have to do their whatever you call it, muscle memory, and they have to do it over and over again to get it. And that I see that in different sports, you know. Some people like surf way more or skate way more, but and then you have other guys just more talented, and it's I don't think it's nothing wrong being training a lot or being a jackass. No,
jackass. Same thing in action sports.
Yeah, and it's fine, you know, and like,
yeah, you definitely had a natural talent. There's no question. I mean, I always like would watch your videos. You landed everything. I mean, even sometimes in the backcountry, you'd go for a new trick, and I'm like, he's not gonna, and then you stuck it. And I'm like, well, that's a cat, you know. And Sprock the cat, if you will, like, and it's kind of behind me. I drew the cat in there. I always remember that. I'm like, how do you land everything? It's just a natural ability. You know, there's a lot of athletes that have that, but you had that in yours, and that definitely sets you apart. Not only that, I think you talk a lot about going fast, and you always went bigger than everybody else, which is something that really sets you apart. I don't care if it was the US Open or anything, Arctic Challenge for that matter. I mean, you just boosted much higher. But one other thing too, I want to get back to is, something I remember very vividly in the action sports is, when I went through, I never made more than $40,000 as an athlete. And that was all in. That was contests, that was photo incentives. And I went kind of the same route you did. I was a heavy competitive rider in my early years. And then after that, I just got burned out on traveling and competing. And it just was the same thing. You stand at the top of the hill, you warm up, you're all sweaty, then you're frozen by the time you drop in. It just wasn't for me. And I connected with the video crews, and I started going around and making videos. And that's where the contract changed. And we now had to put a lot of photo incentives in there. And that's how I did it. And I know you sort of did the same thing, but where I want to go with this part here is during I don't know if it was the late 90s, early 2000s, riders started getting agents. And I didn't even know. I mean, football players, basketball players, they all had agents, right, that negotiated their contracts and got them more. And there was agents popping up, in the action sports world. And I remember one agency called The Family, and I respected it because it was just the riders that were part of it. But these riders were getting paid more than any other riders out there. I mean, some of these riders had $250,000 bases. And I don't know if we want to get into some of the riders that we're talking about, but I remember that just being like thinking, I can't even imagine making $250,000 snowboarding, but these guys were, and they had the fancy cars, the big houses, but it was all because of their agents going to corporate America and bringing these corporate sponsors to these athletes. But, there's a give take in that, and we talked about it offline. So they were getting paid these big dollars, right? But what did they give up to make that big money? I mean, you got the energy drinks were coming into it, the computer world, the technology world, they are all throwing money at these athletes. But what did the athletes have to give up to make that big money?
I don't know. I don't think they have to give up too many things. I was sponsored by an electric company, and they didn't know action sports, so that their demands were like, you have to like deliver all this stuff. And I'm like, well, it's summer, I can't deliver right now. So like you have this more pressure on you to deliver, definitely, and but I would say like some of those sponsors too, they picked up, got smart, and they can help the athletes in a different way. I know some of the people who was actually sponsored by the drinks that is really bad for you, they have this what do you call it, this help me out, what do you call it when they have like the support of
they had the training facilities. I mean, if you look at Shaun White, Red Bull paid for that private training.
Yeah, they have like this network, and they help the athletes grow in a different way, like a national team would do. Mm-hmm. And even though some athletes here in Norway, not action sport, but they got so much heat from being sponsored by energy drinks. But he was like, well, their kind of support system is better than my national team is, so that's why, like, want to use it. I know people get filled. They get filled. What I think it's like, it's okay in a way because they're using it. They want the career, whatever. But at the long run, they're also giving kids or people the wrong impression. So it's, I don't know. I got mixed feelings about this, but
yeah. I do too. I mean, I remember the Dew Tour. It was like one of the biggest tours that, and I wrote a lot of those contests, but I'm always thinking, Mountain Dew, I wanted to drink Mountain Dew because of the Dew Tour. I'm like, oh, this is what, snowboarders should be drinking. And I hated it. Always made you feel like crap. And, but it's just a mixed message, but I guess that's just any sport, right? I can't remember what sport it was.
It is. And that's also like sad if people had consumed, good product, healthy product, like those companies would have more money to throw after, But obviously, it's, like I talked to some people who worked in Gatorade a long time ago, and their best customers is people who work in construction. They get dehydrated, it's hot, it's a big bottle. And, like some of the energy drinks are the biggest customers, people who drink alcohol. So, that's where like money comes from. And yeah. But I wish I actually also took the opportunity to get some outside sponsors more than I used to, like I could. But I was also like in a happy place, and I also felt like if I did more sponsor, I have more obligations and not that freedom. And I think some of those guys have it now. Like some of the guys have really cool sponsors that actually get more help from an outside sponsor, and for some it's just a headache. I remember we all signed up, a bunch of us action sports athletes, with I'm not going to mention the company, but an electric one. But everybody after 1 year, it was just like, fuck, they couldn't deliver, and there was just the agency was working for that electric company, didn't know. So I think out of so many athletes, I think over 50% only had 1 year out of the two, and it was a shame because it was actually a good product, but it was just like the demands for what we could do for them was,
just not in line. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was referring to with the give take, right? You know, like you sign up for these sponsors, these outside sponsors that have requirements of that athlete, you know, because they want them to deliver on something. Does the athlete give up a lot of, you know, the freedoms that they have in this sport and the things that they love for the chasing the dollar? And I think that's just it's a balance. You got to balance or counterbalance the money for the love and what you want out of life. And, you know, I think one of the things too, what would be, you've gone through this and you're still very involved, which a lot of, you know, pro snowboarders after their heyday, like they just go to do something else. Very few of them stay involved in the sport, but you have. So what advice, you know, there's a lot of young kids out there that love the sport, are trying to find their way and navigate their way to how do I actually do this for a living? And, you know, they follow like Shaun White, who started at a young age, but his parents gave up so much so that he could be where he was. And a lot of people don't understand that part of it. And a lot of the pro athletes today, their parents or their support system has literally given up everything to, you know, make it so their kid can get there. But how do kids today navigate through that? And what would you say to a young 14-year-old ripper out there who's like dead set on being the professional snowboarder and making it their career path? What are the things they should do or stay true to? What's the best advice you'd have for them?
Difficult question, because it's so much harder to be an athlete in any sports these days, because people specialize in such an earlier age. I can give out, like, even in team sports, I have a son that was playing hockey and soccer at the same time. And like maybe a generation 1 or 2 before, they can do hockey and soccer up till they're like 14, 15. But now you kind of like get to 11, 12, you have to pick, because there's so many trainings and things you have to do. You can't do both of them. And in action sport too, like obviously you have more competition and influences. Some places in the world have the best facilities, and like if you live far away, it's going to always make it harder. But it comes to the drive of the kid, and I think like you can still grow and be successful after you kind of grow like from 16 and up. And you know, like in some sports, people don't really flower before they're 21 plus, before like their finished development, you know, and they get a little better, smarter in their head to see things. But like I don't know what to tell to a kid, but I like, for a parent's perspective, you know, like it's nice to have a trophy child, but let the kid kind of choose the things, you know. Don't be too pushy, just lead the way and make it possible for what the kid wants, you know. And if you are a sporty parent or not, you know, I think doing a lot of different things can also keep the attraction for a kid, you know. Succeeding or not succeeding, if you know a lot of different sports when you're 18, like when you're done with like, okay, I'm not going to be professional in anything, but then you only know one sport instead of like many, and then you can have fun with activities, because there's only a few small percentage of who's going to make a career out of it, you know. But if you're determined and whatever, you know, I think you have to just look at what other people do, because a lot of the things now it's so hardcore. So it's actually about taking care of yourself, you know. Like you can learn new tricks and whatever, but then you have to make sure you can take care of yourself and keep doing it on for years. And then like I said too, like we kind of learn as we go, you know. We start filming videos with Super 8 and 16 millimeter, but now you can film everything yourself with your buddies, and you kind of like you have to sell yourself, you have to make these things to and that's what makes money, you know. Now you have YouTubers making more money than TV channels, and things been changing and progress has been changing, so keep yourself updated. But my advice is like, don't get stuck too much on the social media, but like and being active and doing things. I think that creates also a healthy mind. You know, I think there's a lot of depressing things you can find out if you get stuck, you know, sitting around and being caught up in everything. Like we spoke about a lot of negative things now, like that is not that cool and whatever, and you can get caught up on it, or you can just oversee it and focus on the more natural things, holistic things, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's keeps my drive, you know. Like if people go like, why, like, well, why do you train and stay or like be active? It's like, well, I like to do things, and if I couldn't go skateboarding, play soccer, whatever, I lose a big part of my lifestyle that makes me happy. And I have friends that are only 35 and they quit playing soccer because they don't take care of their legs. They have hamstring problems. They're always hurt. But if they maybe put 10, 15 minutes into their body every day, they could still have their one thing they love the most in their life, you know. Now they only have work and kids with no sport. And then you can see and they fall apart, you know, the life gets not that exciting and happy. And I think I'm good at having fun at diverse conditions, kind of. You know, I do have a lot of toys in the garage. That helps. I have a lot of wheels. I have a lot of like for different types of conditions. And like I said too, like I'm not a tennis player, but fuck, it's pretty fun to play tennis sometimes or do something else, you know, just to, you know, appreciate the things you like the most too. Come back to it.
And always challenging yourself.
And that's my tips or like my things. And you know, I can see some young people are really good at picking things up and whatever, and some people maybe just misled or getting too pushy or getting too serious, and you know, they don't think it's fun, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons, and it's hard, you know. Like I wouldn't say every contest I went to was fun, whatever. Like, you know, it was sometimes it was not that cool, whatever, but in general, everything I do, I think it's, you know, fun. And I was like, I'm not like, oh, I need to have fun. I'm trying to have fun. I'm not that. Like I just do things and then they develop from there. You know,
that was powerful. And I love what you said. You spoke about the parents, you know, the parents giving their children the ability to create what they want and supporting them instead of trying to get their children to conform to what they want their children to do or what they think their children should do. Or, you know, a parent, you know, I see it all the time. You know, I see parents constantly saying, you know, you should be doing this because this is how you're going to make a good career and a lot of money. But the child is dreaming of doing something different, but the child's forced to conform to the parents' ideologies because that's what the parents driving them. Where if the parents would just allow the children to dream, allow the children to create and support that, regardless of what's going to happen, I think the children would be a lot happier. I think you definitely would see less depression and all these issues in children. I just feel like children are just, you know, forced to do things that they don't really want to do, or they just get stuck in social media world, living somebody else's dreams by just diving into that and losing themselves in the process.
Yeah. To get back to maybe a thing I forgot was if there's any tips that like the audition part of getting to a sponsor stage or being recognized or getting sponsored that you can make a career. The audition part is always a contest, you know, like in the 90s, a lot of us did contests a little bit. As soon as there were sponsors, they quit doing contests because they didn't like it. And they just did like the filming, the backcountry and change, you know, because the only way in was kind of like the contest to get recognized and seen. But now it's totally different change because everybody has a camera, everybody has an editing program on their, like it's so much easier to make that content. So you can actually, you can be a YouTuber. You don't have to go the contest way. You can be creative in different ways if you want to go that route or try that route. You know, your auditions is more than just a contest. And you know, like some people are not mentally made for contests. They wouldn't enjoy it or they don't like it. I remember too, like some of the guys who showed up the X Games the first years, they had like the video part of the year and they were really good. But then in the contest setting, they were just shit. Not that we're shitty snowboarders, but didn't have the drive, not really used to it, you know? And like, you can go to a contest and not always the best guy would win, or you think like, because that's why you kind of call it a contest. You got to deliver there and then, and you have that pressure on you. And I think that's kind of like the cool thing about contest, you know? And you have the, you know, like, you have that drive to like maybe try and beat somebody or like win or be better and drive off each other. And you have to accept that it's a challenge, you know, like, well, the weather was not nice, or the pipe was not good enough. And like, I can do better when it's like, well, it's the same for kind of everybody. And then, you know, like it's hard, especially with outdoor sports. I remember being in a contest where like suddenly the light went flat and you're just about to drop in. You're just like, fuck. And then for example, like a bank slalom with a light flat and sunny, it's like that's seconds, you know. And I remember like some of the X Games slope style, they always used to have the final right when the sun went down. So all the landings were shady. And in the second run, 90% would fall. And then some of the guys, if they knew that, they can have it, make that sure that first run was good and solid, because a lot of the time they would win on that first run because everybody would have a shitty second run because it was, when it's flat lie, you can't see you landing. So a lot of people would fall. So, and that's the, I don't know, cool thing about concerts and drive. A lot of people hate it, whatever. But I think it's like part of the progression, you know. So a lot of people hate those foam pits, airbags, and whatever. But fuck, that's a human progress too. You know, you can't be sour about it. It's like somebody, I like even the style and whatever. It was like, oh, it's hard, and you know, we're pushing human bodies, you know. But I think everybody, like, even though you have all that, everybody will appreciate, you know, certain styles when people have style or different, you know, aspect of a riding or skating, you know, what they like to watch, you know. I don't think it's one perfect form.
I love it. That was some great tips right there. So anybody listening, like right there, that was just laid out. Like, you want to do it, go out there, have fun, but also, you know, today it doesn't have to be the contest series, although that's definitely something you should do. You could do it with social media, YouTube. I mean, there's several other, I'm trying to think of his last name, Marcus. Is it Marcus Stevens? Whatever it is, pro snowboarder. And he became a superstar because of his YouTube and his Instagram post. And he's just fun to watch. So you can really create and, you know, almost get yourself where you want to be by just having fun and doing a couple simple steps that put you there. It's a very different path this day and age. I mean, you can almost get into X Games by posting a whole bunch of videos on Instagram that are progressive and next level stuff. And some of these, you know, teams, and see you on there. I just saw it at the last X Games. Like, there was a rider on there who was like a sensation on, I think it was YouTube or Instagram, and he got invited to X Games and actually won, which was just awesome to see. That never probably would have happened back in our time, but it can happen now. So that's progression. That's pushing the envelope. But also, you know, people just need to remember that they need to stay focused on creating their life and their dream instead of conforming.
And then you have to take care of yourself. You have to have that discipline.
Well, that's where I was going to go. Just as we wrap up, I wanted to wrap up is, you know, a lot of people look at you, you know, you're a legend, you know, you're the most influential snowboarder, but you still are an influence because you're still keeping your body healthy and you're still in it. I mean, if anyone goes to your Instagram and they start following you, they'll see your wake surfing, sometimes you're playing soccer, you're skateboarding, you're snowboarding. It's just something different. Surfing in Hawaii, you haven't stopped, but you know, as we get up older in age, a lot of people think, oh, I'm too old. I can't stand it. Teddy, I don't know how you feel, but you know, as we get older, you're a little older than I am, but constantly all of our friends that we grew up with, that we used to snowboard and skate and surf with, like they say, oh, I'm too old for that. Oh, I got kids. I can't do that. Oh, I don't want to get hurt. It's just like, that is like literally nails on a chalkboard for me, because that's them just giving up and
it is kind of giving up. And I look at like, I would say like skaters that are older than me, that is still progressing, you know. Tony is a good example, and Bob and Rune Cliffberg, and, you know, they can do their sport amazingly still. And like some of those guys are not really even that like good or like taking care of themselves, but I know some of those guys also changed, you know. And I think like if you have that drive that it's just really fun to do that activity, I think that's a good enough excuse for me to keep going.
Love it.
And, you know, like I have periods of a year where I have a good discipline, and, you know, I'm building it up, and sometimes I fall off. I get a little lazy and whatever. And then I always regret it when I fall off, because then I get like the aches and the little things. And having one injury is like, I got a really good tip when I was like 21. I was complaining to my tax lawyer at the time about my hips or something. And I was like complaining, and he was just sitting there, and he's like, well, fuck Terje, can you just fucking live with it?
That's what your tax attorney said?
And then I was like, well, there's no other choice. I have a little pain there, but I can live with it. I can still ride a little, you know. And then even though like I have a little pain here and there and whatever, but I can still do the activity. So I was like, for me, I'm like, when I do get hurt, I always go, I think soccer is some of the roughest thing I do, because you run and torque and stop and whatever. So that's always a good test. If I go to an injury, I'll go, okay, can I play soccer? And if I can play soccer, okay, I'm good. Even if I always going to have aches. I always going to have my back and my prolapse in my back of compression of playing, but what people told me, looked at me, if you keep active and moving. I have another friend that is a gymnast who's 52. His back is fully jacked if he doesn't do anything. But if he plays and, play a monkey, do little activities, he's fine. And that's how I look at it too. I just started the process of my vertebrae. They go black when they get older. The liquid goes out of them. So mine is like white, gray, black, and a lot of people have that, not even from doing sports, but that doesn't mean that you have to stop doing activities, and things, like you can still I have a bad shoulder, but I could still do one game of tennis, like I'll be a little sore tomorrow, but I could still do it. And that's how I look at it, though. Like, you can have tons of injuries, but you can still do stuff you like. So not excuse.
Yeah, I relate to that. I mean, I'm 44. I just turned 44 yesterday. And, I know several years ago, for 2 seasons in a row, I got hurt trying to I went back into competing in snowboarding, and I got injured in 2 contests. It was like back to back. And the one was pretty serious. And I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm done. My family's like, why do you keep pushing? And I'm like, you're right. I'm getting too old. And I stopped doing anything. I didn't ride much. I wasn't skateboarding. And as soon as I stopped, my body started to fall apart. It would hurt to walk downstairs. Like, I'd wake up sore. I had no energy. And then I'm like, screw this. So I started going back to the skate park. That's how I started. I just started pumping around the bowls, and, I was sore for days after, but then I just kept doing it, and I kept doing it. And I started loving it. And I started saying, how did I ever give this up? And then I got in the gym and I started getting strong again. And today, I can't even imagine not going to the park a couple times a week and not going to the hill and not surfing, because if I stop, it all falls apart. And I think that's right into what you were saying. Like, don't ever give up, because once you stop, that's when your body's going to give up on you. Your body has been conditioned, and you can condition it even more through yoga or all the, just follow you. You're doing it every day. I mean, if you stop doing something you love because you think it's bad for your body, it's probably the opposite. It's probably your body is going to say, I'm going to give up on you if you give up on what you love, because the two are connected. And I'm living proof of it. I mean, I can tell you right now, when I stopped, everything fell apart. And then I started again, and skateboarding is not very good for your body, but my body's used to it again, and it just loves it. And yeah, it hurts, but it's just strong, and you just keep pushing it. So I hate that excuse of people saying I'm too old or I can't do that anymore. That's your mind. It's your mind telling
also,
you
like the other thing too, when I meet people, I'm like, yeah, I snowboard too, but I'm not as good as you. But I always go like, well, but I'm always go like, hey, well, you probably have the same fun as me. I obviously same level right there, kind of. And I think that's the more important thing. Of course, it's really fun to master whatever activity you're doing, like to a certain level. But like for me, skateboarding, I'm not really good at skateboarding, but I can master enough to have that pleasure, and if I do consistently, actually, I might improve a little bit. But like sometimes I don't skate for a couple of months, or I get into it again, and I have to like start a little back, but it still have that pleasure. And I don't go up to pro skaters and saying like I'm not as good as you, but like I still have most of the fun as those guys do, I think.
That's fantastic, man. I love that. That's the perfect way to kind of wrap this up. One final question for you before we wrap is, what's next for you?
I don't know. I just had my 4th kid, so maybe I'll make a trophy child. Now that I have, like the world is definitely a different place with the corona and things. And I did my fair share of travel. So I'm definitely going to do the activities that I like the most. And that's probably more in the water. But, I live in a place where I like all the 4 seasons. And I'll keep doing what I've been doing, all the different things.
Just having fun every step of the way. I like the trophy child thing though. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, what I'll do, I'll make sure I'm not pushing. I'll just pave the way or make it possible wherever they want to. But no, it's like, what is next and what is, like, I don't know. I might probably gonna try to do this movie project before I'm 50. So I got a couple more years. Started a little bit on it, and that's about activities and doing things. Like I don't mind doing emails, and I help out on production and events and stuff. And but for me, it's like the older I get, the more I like to mow the lawn and cut the hedge than doing an email. It's just something about sitting still and but I'm also at the same time I'm a nerdy guy. I like editing and watching footage and creating things and actually one thing I gave up a while ago, like I don't play too much video games. I like this last 10 years, whatever. Like I didn't like play a lot, but I used to like play at least. That's something I kind of like miss too. And just like when I want to relax, play a little bit of video games. I think a little bit of video games is not bad for anybody.
Everything in moderation, right?
So, and then I don't know, still learn. I got a lot to learn still. Yeah.
I love it. Perpetual student, always learning, always pushing, never giving up. And, that's what makes you who you are. And, how would people go about following you? What's the best place where they can see your activities that you're up to now?
My name is Chokorumpe, of all names. It means chocolate ass.
That's what that stands for?
Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I might have to cancel that account, start a new one. But that's where I mostly post mostly. I'm not really too active on the Facebook, but those two channel links, I used to post kind of like political things on Twitter, but there's enough negativity out there, and then people think I just trying to I was just really hope that Action Sports sticks together and brings up the prize money. The Street League was a good example of like those guys who did that, got rid of some middlemen and some guys not in the industry, and had purses like $150,000, $250,000, and actually legit. I told like one of the snowboarders, I'm like, why do you go to 10 contests a year and you make barely $100,000 if you win all of them, while you can do one and win half a house or a down payment on something? You guys are fucking risking your health and your body. You never get time to learn new tricks between the contests. There's just too many, and you're diluting the sport because you always see the same runs in a different place with the same park or pipe almost. So I really wish that the whole industry, especially in snowboarding, that they stick together and make some demands for themselves and for the sport, to make it more interesting so people actually can have those careers without, having all this other stuff that they don't really want to do. And I can't really getting back to the council. Now I just laugh about it. I congratulations to people who is seeing it. The Olympics is a really good thing. You don't even get the best people there, but they really appreciate that contest more than anything. And I was like, I Twittered a long time ago. I think I did a couple of times. There's 3 things that are really big in America. It's marriage and divorce and Olympics. But it's for example, let's say the surfing where Kelly said he lost one wave, they didn't qualify, and he's good enough to be there and fight for a medal. But since the qualification system is that way it is, because IOC needs to make money of who is getting qualified and more license to all this country, that's like sports dictating. The NHL, they understand it. They don't send their professional players if the NHL but their requirements of protecting their athletes and their sport and their whole seasonal tour. So I think was it in the last Olympics in Korea, where there was no, like, the hockey is normally the highest rated in winter sports, but since the NHL players was not there, it was actually lower. So that's what I hope for the industry, but that's like my account. So like I'm not really active on Twitter anymore, and I don't really like I try to actually get away from a lot of those things, you know. Like I like to be creative and make videos, and hopefully like I get time to make actually more things you can share and teach other people. I like to look at other people who makes creative things where you can learn something or get tips or something. So, you know, hopefully I get time to do more of that.
Well, I think that's good. And one thing you said there about, you know, the sport and the progression and everything else and how it's happening. I think the riders, the ones that are making the sport and pushing the sport, need to really band together and realize like it's on them. Yeah, they got to take a stand.
I've been trying to tell them for so many years too, but
it's tough. It's just going to have to.
They think like, and that's like the good thing about like agents too, is like sometimes an agent or a team will tell the guy to go for the money instead of like the values and the long run, for the good and bad, you know, with agents.
That's how the agent gets paid.
Yeah. And also like, but the whole industry, team manager and everything, you know, like fucking stand up for you guys self. You guys are getting, I don't know if you can say this on the podcast, but
you say anything.
Okay. My friend said, he had a good quote. It's like, okay, I'll change like one word, make it a little nicer, but like, you can imagine that what word I was used. Like it sucks to be screwed over, but knowing that you're getting screwed over must suck a lot harder. Yeah. And they know they're getting screwed over, so that must fucking hurt.
Yeah, it's like getting freaking slapped in the face continuously, and until they just say stop slapping me and take a stand, it's never going to change, you know. And that's the hardest part.
And also, like, getting back to the snowboard, like, those guys can have the grand slams, do 4, maximum 5 events, and then they have time to do all these other things in snowboard. They have time to go split boarding, powder riding, and, you know, some people just want to ride the streets. They have time to do all these other things and not going from room contest to contest. I think COVID was actually good for like some of those guys, so they didn't do all those contests. At the same time, those contests they did was only fist contest, and it was no prize money for them.
You know, and I think, you know, when I watch all the athletes, you know, I don't want to watch X Games. I don't want to watch all the competitive riding. I want to watch like when they're just out with their friends, with their phones or GoPros, just filming themselves having fun. That is what I view progression of the sport, because that's when you see them laughing and smiling, and they do tricks that are just fun to them, but like just so awesome to see. And, you know, like you said, the contest riding, it's so just calculated and same thing over and over. And you can just see there's pressure and stress. And I don't know. I just don't think that's the direction the sport needs to go in. I know that's where the money's at, but they need to balance that.
Yeah, but actually, like we look at this though, like we talk about, that's not actually where the money's at. If they were together, that would be where the money's at. If they
just like back in the day. Yeah.
Well, like, yeah, like it's kind of embarrassing to say that the highest prize money in snowboarding is still 1998.
That's sick. Actually, it's
yeah.
I mean, like
that's probably embarrassing, because I did a US Today interview, and they're like, so what about 20 years with Olympics? What's the good things? And I told them everything about, no, it's the worst ever. Half-up ratings are down, prize money is all-time low. And I gave them the example of what NHL did. But I don't know, they didn't write anything what I said, because they have the interest of like, well, they don't want to badmouth the IOC or whatever, because they're going to need credentials when they're going there or something. I don't know. But they were all scared of saying something. And now with this political correct world and everything, and people are being so more hypocrites than ever, because they're like, you know, hug one tree one day, protect my winters the next day, but then I do this and that and whatever. Like, okay, let's say like we're all little hypocrites, but fuck, it's a different, right? You know, shaking a hand or blowing the devil. What was that we were talking about?
Yeah, that's definitely about the best way to sum that up.
Yeah. So, but one thing you can't take away from action sport though is like, no matter the contest, the politics, whatever, is always going to be fun. It's always going to be there, because it's that fun that people have doing action sports, and that will never be taken away. You know,
I agree.
There's tons of positive things in the action sport, and the grassroots contests and little things and jams and gatherings. We just happen to speak about a lot of things that inflected my life and what I've seen and what I think is sad. But on the positive side, it's always going to be fun out there doing it.
So let's go have fun. Let's get a bunch of parents to let their kids go out and create what they want and have fun. And let's just keep pushing this and keep spreading the message. And Terje, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a real honor. And I think this is a great discussion.
Yeah, thank you. And have the best summer.
Oh, absolutely. I will. And I'll be watching your Instagram and your stories just to see what activities you're doing. Keep inspiring, keep influencing, and I'll be watching. All right, folks. So you heard it right there. And remember, from the beginning, it's not about the knowledge you just got. It's about taking action. So go out there, do an activity, have fun, go out and just live your best day, your best life, and stop conforming to what other people want you to do. That's it. That's all for today's episode. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.